All right, welcome again, everybody. This is Mr. Zawacki, and what we're going to be talking about today are the human body systems. In Module 7 for biology, you will go through several systems of the human body, 701 through 706. So we're going to briefly discuss those and the important concepts of those today. The very first system you look at is the nervous system. And there's a couple things you want to know about the nervous system. First of all, it makes up three major parts of your body. It makes up the brain and the spinal cord, as well as all the other nerves that go around it as well. So that makes two different parts of the nervous system. There is the central nervous system, which is just your brain and spinal cord. It does all the processing. It's called the central nervous system because it's in charge of everything. And then you have your peripheral nervous system. These are all the nerves all around the other parts of your body that relay messages. Sensory neurons go from the body to the brain or spinal cord, delivering messages. And motor neurons do the opposite. They go from the brain and spinal cord to the rest of the body to deliver messages. So again, know the two parts, central and peripheral. Central is your brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral are your sensory and motor neurons that go all around the body. Additionally, you guys need to know about the four lobes of the brain. And they are the frontal lobe. So if somebody's eye would be probably somewhere down here, looking this way. Okay, so the frontal lobe is in front of your brain. It's the part that, is the generally front portion of your skull as well. And the frontal lobe controls things like speech and emotion and thought and, all the different things that go with emotion like anger or fear or things like that. That's your frontal lobe. Parietal lobe, if you kind of feel like right on top of your head, that's going to be where your parietal lobe is. This one is one of your older lobes, evolutionarily speaking, because it controls things like breathing and heart rate and, normal body functions. The occipital lobe is in the direct back of your head. The occipital lobe controls things actually like eyesight. Your your optic nerves goes from actually your eye straight back to your occipital lobe. So if you ever got hit in the back of the head before and saw stars, it's because your occipital lobe is directly connected to eyesight, believe it or not. And then the temporal lobe, this is near your ears, your temples, and these control things like hearing. Which is obviously because it's close to your ears as well. So know about those four lobes, frontal, parietal, occipital, temporal, and know what each of those four lobes do. Frontal is all about speech and emotion. Parietal is normal body functions like breathing and heart rate. Occipital is eyesight, and the temporal is more hearing. So that is the nervous system, which is 7.01. Now, circulatory system, which is 7.02. You also need to know a couple important things here. You need to know the path that blood takes, and you need to know the difference between arteries and veins as well. And you need to know the difference between, pulmonary and systemic circulation, which is very easy. So let me explain it as best as I can, and then we'll go from there. First of all, red blood cells. Those are the things that carry oxygen in your blood. And they're made inside of bone. So inside of any of your bones, that's where red blood cells are made. And then they enter the bloodstream. So that's where the whole thing starts. Now, oxygen-poor blood, look at it as blue. So oxygen-poor blood travels in veins back to the heart. So on this picture over here, oxygen-poor blood is everything in blue. It's traveling by veins to go back to the heart. And I know that looks like the left side of the heart, but if you're looking at it as a person, the blue is actually the right-hand side of the heart. When you're looking at anatomy, sometimes things are backwards of each other. You'd have to visualize it as being on the person itself. Then in the heart, the blood gets pumped to the lungs to get oxygen. This is called pulmonary circulation. So when the heart pumps blood into the lungs and then gets it back, that's pulmonary circulation. This circle right here are pulmonary circulation. All that means is blood from the heart is getting to the lungs, and then the lungs are giving it back to the heart. So it's going to go around this way. Okay? So the oxygen-poor blood travels by veins into the right side of the heart. Then the heart pumps the blood into the lungs to get oxygen. That's why it goes back to your heart, to get oxygen. And then once it has oxygen, it will then go back to the left-hand side of the heart, where now it's red colored, and then it will travel out through arteries. It goes from the lung to the heart, and then back to the body via arteries. Arteries are oxygen rich. So now it goes to the rest of the body where it delivers oxygen to do things like cellular respiration. And then once it runs out of oxygen, it goes back by veins to the heart again. So I know that was a lot, but let me try to summarize it one more time for you. When oxygen-poor blood, that means blood that has very little oxygen in it, happens, it needs to get more oxygen. So how does it do that? It travels by veins to the heart. Then the heart sends it to the lungs to get more oxygen. That's what you breathe in, oxygen. And then the heart receives the blood again from the lungs, and then it pumps it out a second time by arteries to the rest of the body to deliver oxygen and to, do things like cellular respiration to get energy. So that's what you really need to know. Difference between arteries and veins, very simple. Veins go to the heart. They carry oxygen-poor blood. Arteries, think of the letter A, arteries carry blood away from the heart. They're oxygen-rich blood. So that's what you need to know for this 702. You got to know, first of all, veins versus arteries, and you need to know the path that blood travels, as I showed you here. Here it is again. All right? Remember, blue is oxygen poor. Red is oxygen rich. So your oxygen poor blood will travel into the heart by veins, and then it will get pumped back into the lungs to get oxygen. And then once that happens, it's now oxygen rich because it has oxygen. So it goes back to the heart, gets pumped out back to the rest of the body where it delivers the oxygen. When it runs out of oxygen, well, the whole process repeats itself. This is a zoomed in picture of our heart. Couple things to note. Remember how I said hearts are backwards of each other? Look at this. Right atrium, right ventricle. That looks like the left-hand side of the heart. But no, remember what I said about that? You're looking at opposites. Because that heart, when it's sitting on an actual human being, then the right and left would make sense. But when you're looking at a picture of the heart, like looking down on it, right is left and left is right. I know that's a little bit confusing, but it makes sense if it's sitting on the person versus you looking at it. So the oxygen-poor blood goes into the right atrium first, then it goes into the right ventricle second, then it gets pumped to the lungs third, and then it goes into the left atrium as next, then it goes into the left ventricle. You can kind of see the pathway here. And then it gets pumped out the major artery, the aorta, last, where it returns to the rest of the body. So again, know the difference between arteries and veins. Know the way that blood travels through the body and heart. Right atrium, right ventricle, lungs, left atrium, left ventricle, body. And that's generally how blood flows throughout your body. All right, so 703 was about the digestive system. We know what that is. That's a system that breaks down food and gives us nutrients to live. Well, you need to know the order of the digestive system. Mouth is always first. That's where digestion starts. You can break down food mechanically with your teeth or chemically with saliva. Then you swallow the food. It goes into your pharynx or throat. Then it goes down a long tube that connects your throat to your stomach, and that's your esophagus. It does this thing called peristalsis that allows you to eat and drink upside down. You go ahead and try it. You can literally eat or drink food or water upside down, and you will still be able to swallow the food, and it'll be forced into your stomach because of peristalsis. It's like a muscle-like contraction that causes the esophagus to squeeze the food into the stomach. Then the fourth organ is the stomach, which we know about that. It's very similar to our mouth, actually. It can break down food chemically, not with saliva, but with acid. Or it can break down food mechanically, not with teeth, but with a muscle, just squeezing the food. So your mouth and stomach do all the breaking down. The intestines do all of the absorption. Your intestines are probably one of the most important parts of your body because the small intestine absorbs all your nutrients. That's how you get healthy, when your food gets into your small intestine. The large intestine at the end absorbs all your water, so that's how you stay hydrated. So your intestines do all the absorbing of healthy nutrients. And then the last two, rectum and anus, those are the last two. So those store the waste and remove the waste. So that's the end of the road there. So definitely know that path. I'll ask it on a DBA. Mouth is first, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, and then small intestine. Large intestine does all the absorptions, and rectum and anus do the removal of the waste as well. So definitely know about those. Again, here's the same exact path what I just got done talking about. So I will trace the path that food travels in your body, food or water. So it'll go into your mouth first, then your pharynx, then your esophagus. Remember, it squeezes the food into your stomach. Then it'll get into your stomach and get broken down even more. And then it'll go into your small intestine, which is longer, but it's skinnier. That's why they call it the small intestine. And it'll stay there for several hours where it gets absorbed, all the nutrients. And then it'll get into your large intestine, ascending, transcending, descending, large intestine, where all of the water gets absorbed. And then it'll get stored in the rectum until it fills up, and then expelled out the end. So make sure you know that path for sure, but also know the organs and what they do, like we just said. Does anybody want to try to give a guess what organ this is right here? It's an organ that used to be part of the large intestine, but it no longer has a function. Does anybody know what that organ is? I'll give you a hint. It's a vestigial organ. Good job, Talea. Yeah, it is the appendix. That's where it's located. It's on your right-hand side. Remember how I said left is right and right was left? Well, that person is located on their right-hand side. So that's where your appendix is. So if you ever have sharp pains in that area, just to the right of your belly button, that could be an appendicitis. So just always note that. That's where your appendix is, for sure. All right, then 704 talked about the skeletal and the muscular systems. How do they work together? Well, they help you move. That's the big thing here. You don't need to know all the names of the bones until you really get into anatomy with me, but you need to know the major bones like femur or patella or tibia or fibula or pelvis. So you need to know some major bone names, but you don't need to know all of them. Same thing with muscles. You don't need to know all those muscle names, but you should know how they work together. Your skeleton is your framework, so it gives you structure and support, but your muscles layer on top of that in order to help you move. So your deepest layer is bone for your skeletal system. Then you have your muscular system, which layers on top of that. And then the other system that I didn't mention here is your integumentary system, which is also part of 704. Does anybody know what your integumentary system is made up of? Skeletal system is your bones, muscular system is your muscles, integumentary system is on top of your muscles, but what makes up your integumentary system? It's okay to guess. Doesn't matter if you're wrong. Close. Remember, that was part of the digestive system. But on top of muscles is your skin. That's your skin, hair, or nails. You'll learn about that in 704 if you haven't got to it yet. But that's generally your skin. So those are the three systems that layer your body. Skeleton is the deepest. Muscles layer on top of that to help you move. Your integumentary system, or your skin, layers on top of that to help protect and help insulate and keep your body at 98 degrees. So that's your three systems of 704. So you'll learn about those and what they do. Then in 705, you get into the reproductive system. And there are three things you need to know from there. You need to know the path that sperm takes to animals. First of all, sperm cells are the cells that help animals reproduce in terms of males. And where it is made is in the testes or testicles. It is made there and then travels through the epididymis, vas deferens, and urethra to leave the body. So you do need to know that order. Sperm is made in the testes, then it travels through the epididymis, the vas deferens, and then the urethra last. So make sure you're able to know that and trace the steps. Made in testes, epididymis, this long tube is the vas deferens, and then it goes into the urethra before it leaves the body. So that's the path that sperm takes for the male reproductive cell in animals. You should also know the path that eggs take in reproductive, which are the reproductive cells for animals of female. So in terms of that one, the egg is made in the ovary first, then it travels through the oviduct second, then it goes through the fallopian tubes third, and then the uterus fourth. And then that egg will stay there for a very short period of time. If it is not fertilized with a sperm cell, so if sperm and egg do not fertilize together, then once every about 28 to 30 days, that egg will then leave the uterus along with the lining of the uterus and exit through the vagina, which is the last part of the female reproductive system. So again, you need to know the order on how eggs travel as well. Step 1, ovary. Step 2, oviduct. Step 3, fallopian tubes. Step 4, in the uterus. And then if that egg is not fertilized, it will then leave through the cervix and out the vagina, which is the 5th step for that one. So again, guys, make sure you know the steps of the path that sperm travels through testes, epididymis, vas deferens, urethra, but know also the path of an egg as well that we just went over for the female reproductive system. That's the 2 things you definitely need to know for the reproductive system. And then also development. You got to know the stages, the basic stages of development. When fertilization occurs, so that's sperm plus egg, so when fertilization happens, the very first thing that we ever were was a zygote. That's a one-celled thing. 46 chromosomes, but only one cell big. And that's the first thing that you or I ever was. After that, it turns into a ball of cells called a blastocyst. So I'll just put blast, but that's the second thing that we were called, a blastocyst. After we were a blastocyst, then we developed and became an embryo through weeks 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So for the first 2 months of us developing, we were a zygote, and then a blastocyst, and then an embryo. You can see how we began to take the shape of something weird to something human-like by week 8. And then after that, you became a fetus or fetal period. And that was the weeks 9 through 38. So most of the time that we were developing, we were a fetus, having new and updated central nervous systems, heart, limbs, eyes, lower limbs, teeth, all different types. So those are generally what happens through the 3 trimesters. So just be aware of that and how everything in terms of development occurs. We were a zygote first, then a blastocyst, then an embryo, and then a fetus, and then you can see below that all the different systems on when and how they developed. So that's the last part of the reproductive system. Then the last one is the immune system. And with the immune system, there are 2 different types of ways that your body can defend itself. There is the non-specific immune system and the specific immune system. Very, very similar, but also different to each other. These are just 2 different ways that your body can defend itself. If it's non-specific, you want to think things like skin or mucus or hair, just defending itself from pathogens. So your skin and mucus, hair, even a fever, these will all help defend germs. However, your skin and your mucus and your hair, they have no idea what exact germ is trying to infect your body. They just block it and kill it. That's what non-specific is. They don't know what the germ is, but they block it and kill it. With your specific immune system, though, those are your white blood cells. And there's 2 different types. There's T cells and B cells. And those cells are smart. They will figure out exactly what the germ is. They will kill it, and they'll even remember how to kill it again for the future. So the big difference between non-specific and specific, guys, which I will ask again, non-specific is just your general lines of defense, like skin and mucus protecting the germ. Whereas the specific immune system are your white blood cells, the T cells and B cells. They figure out exactly what the pathogen is, how to kill it, and they'll even kill it again and give you an immunity from it in the future. All right. So I just got a couple questions for you guys just to get your credit for today, and then we are all finished. So first of all, does anybody remember the 2 parts of the nervous system? What are the names of the 2 parts of the nervous system? There are 2 different sections. What are those 2 different sections of the nervous system called? Remember, one starts with a C and one starts with a P. Two parts of the nervous system. Good job, Paris. It is the central and peripheral. Okay. Good job, Michaela. Yep, central and peripheral. Next question, which lobe, frontal, parietal, occipital, or temporal, which one controls your eyesight? Frontal, parietal, occipital, or temporal? Which one controls your eyesight? Okay, we got a guess for temporal. Well, let's go back to it. Here's your eye. So the occipital lobe is the one that controls eyesight. Remember, frontal is speech and emotion and thought. Parietal is all about your normal body functions like breathing and heart rate. Temporal was close. That's hearing. So you were close. So know about that. Central, peripheral, 4 lobes of the brain. Next question is from 702 about the circulatory cardiovascular system. Which one, arteries or veins, carry blood to the heart, and which one carries blood away from the heart? So between arteries and veins, which one carries blood to the heart, which one carries blood away from the heart? All right, very good, Talea. Veins to the heart, and then arteries go away from the heart. Yep, good job, Paris, same thing. Which ones carry oxygen poor blood? Would that be arteries or veins? Yeah, veins carry the oxygen poor blood to the heart and to the lungs to get more oxygen, right? And then arteries will carry the oxygen-rich blood away from the heart to deliver their oxygen-rich blood around to the rest of the body. All right, 703, digestive system. Which intestine absorbs all your nutrients? I forget, which one was that? Was that large or small? Which one absorbs all your nutrients? Good job. Talea, Stella, Michaela, yep, the small intestine absorbs your nutrients. Large intestine absorbs your water. Some people used to think the stomach did that, but it does not. It just breaks down food. All right, so we did 704, skeletal, muscular, and integumentary system. Just remember that they all just help you move. Well, the first two help you move. The integumentary system of your skin protects you and helps you keep your body at 98 degrees. 705, remember the path of sperm, remember the path of the egg. And then 706, about the immune system. Last question for you guys, so once you answer this, you're all free to go. 706, the immune system, there was the specific and non-specific immune responses. What's the difference? How do you know the difference between your immune system doing a non-specific response versus a specific response? That's the last question. So once you guys answer this, that's it. So again, we're just figuring out the difference between specific and non-specific response of your immune system. Remember, your immune system fights for you when you're sick or getting sick. But there are two different ways. There's a specific and a non-specific way for your body to defend itself. So just looking for the difference between those. All right. So Leah, very good response there. That your body does not know what they're fighting off in this non-specific response. That's true. Skin, mucus, hair, a fever, that's all non-specific. Your body knows what they're fighting off for the specific, which is your T and B cells. Very good. So, yes, so that's it, guys. Just make sure that you understand all those topics we talked about. That's the main topics and the main questions for your DBA for Module 7 as well. So hopefully you guys learned some things about those different systems today. That's it for really all of our live lessons. Starting next week, we're going to be starting EOC reviews. So you're going to see things already for the second time starting next week. But it's really important because you need to be like a perfectionist at these upcoming EOC reviews in order to be successful. So hope to see you guys again next week. Thank you guys again for coming, and we'll see you then.